Welcome back, season 3, Serious and Silly. That's Sheila. I'm Scott, and today, Sheila, we have another amazing guest. April 12th, 1980, a young man named Terry Fox dipped his toe into the Atlantic Ocean. His goal was to run across Canada, raising money for cancer awareness. His goal was to raise $24 million, running on one good leg and one prosthetic leg. He reached that goal, 24.1 million, but that's not where his journey ended. This year we celebrate the 40th anniversary of the Terry Fox Run, and he has raised over $800 million for cancer research, and it's currently run in over 60 countries. It is the largest one-day event for cancer research, and we are just so humbled and honored to have his brother here, a true Canadian hero and one of the great Canadian families. Darrell Fox, welcome to Champlain College. How are you?
I'm very good, Scott, Sheila. Nice to be here. But I have to correct you already.
Okay.
I'm not special. I'm not amazing. I'm just lucky enough to have the same last name as Terry's, and was able to spend 3 months as a part of the Marathon of Hope in 1980. I have this incredible gift of being able to talk about Terry 41 years later. I never get tired of it, and so for me, this is an honor and a privilege, and there's so many other people more deserving to be in this position than me. So, but thanks again.
We'll agree to disagree on that, and we'll get into a question about you being up in the van at 5 a.m., not wanting to go to sleep because Terry was out there running. So I think it's apples and oranges, but yeah, it's great. So Sheila, we're not going to be able to do justice to this incredible story in our 10 or to 15-minute interview. We're just going to ask our students, if they haven't already, just to Google Terry Fox, learn about as much as you can, because the story, as Darrell said, after 40 years is still incredible and amazing. But Darrell, could you take us back maybe to the beginning, how it started, and kind of talk us through the journey of how this all started?
Well, yeah, it'd probably be best to go all the way back to Terry being diagnosed with cancer at the young age of 17, because I understand that's the age of the students. Yeah. He had just recently graduated from Port Coquitlam Senior Secondary, which is now Terry Fox Senior Secondary, and was up at Simon Fraser University studying kinesiology, and he actually happened to make the junior varsity basketball team up at SFU as well. And he discovered a pain in his right knee. Terry was very stubborn, very determined, and he made a very bad decision during this period. He decided that he wasn't going to see a doctor right away. He thought that the pain was the result of playing too much basketball, and he really wanted to finish that first year of JV basketball before having the inconvenience of having to go see a doctor. Well, that day never came. The pain got so bad and so intense that one morning when Terry tried to get out of bed and put weight on his right leg, he simply couldn't. At that moment, Terry realized he wasn't dealing with a basketball injury anymore. There was something more seriously wrong. And it was later that evening, Terry, along with his family, myself included, obviously, and Doug Allward, who drove the van during the Marathon of Hope, Terry's best friend, we were gathered in a private room when Dr. Piper came in to share the news of what Terry actually had. And even though it's 44 years ago now, I remember that evening as if it were last night. Dr. Piper simply came into the room and said, "Terry, you have osteogenic sarcoma, which is bone cancer, and we're going to have to amputate your leg in 5 days." Now, you would think in that situation, it would be the family that would be supporting Terry, comforting him with the life-changing information that he had just received, but it was actually the other way around. Terry looked around the room and he saw how Fred, the older brother, was crying. I was bawling my eyes out. Mom and Dad were struggling. So he realized he had to be strong for the rest of the family. And one of the first things that Terry said was that I've always had to try my best to accomplish what I have to the age of 17. I'm just going to have to try that much harder to overcome this latest challenge. Before today, I'd never heard of the word cancer, but I can promise you, I'm going to do my best to beat this disease. And that's how Terry moved forward from that day in terms of how he handled the disease cancer.
It's amazing. 17 years old, and yeah, just a tribute to you and your family, and I'm sure your parents and his upbringing. And then, so after that, how did the Marathon of Hope kind of come about?
Well, yeah. So You know, what Terry didn't realize with cancer was, initially he thought, okay, you know, I've lost my leg to this disease, and I have to, you know, go on living as normal of a life as possible. But there's more to cancer than just the amputation. And that was the 18 months of going through chemotherapy. And that's really what transformed Terry into the person we all came to know, because he saw the suffering of so many people. You know, we as family members never heard of Terry's own pain and discomfort because he tried so hard to hide it from us. But we always knew what he was going through from the stories that he shared of those who did not survive cancer. And he made a promise during that period that if he ever survived, that he ever walked out of the cancer wards alive, he would never forget those that he had left behind. And it was Terry's former basketball coach at Port Coquitlam that the night before Terry's surgery, he was going to see Terry, and he was wondering, what can I offer Terry? What can I bring him to help him with this horrible situation he finds himself in? And so Terry Fleming brought a Runner's World magazine. And on the cover of the Runner's World magazine was a picture of Dick Traum. And Dick Traum was an American who had been able to run 42 kilometers or 26 miles, a marathon, on an artificial leg. And Terry simply said, look it, if this guy can run 42K on an artificial leg, then why can't I? You know, tomorrow my life's going to change forever. I need a goal. I need something to strive for. And that's what I'm going to try and do. I'm going to try and run on an artificial leg. Well, because of the 18 months of chemotherapy, Terry just wasn't well enough to fulfill that dream. But as soon as he finished his last treatment and recovered from that treatment, Terry started to train. Did he run 42K that first day? Not even close. He ran just one lap of a dirt track in our hometown of Port Coquitlam. And after he ran that one lap of the track, 400 meters, a quarter mile, he started to question himself. He couldn't fathom what it'd be like to run 42K when it was so difficult to run 400 meters. But whenever he thought of quitting, whenever the voices and pain was so much that he felt that he should stop, Terry only thought of those that he had left behind. And he knew, you know, he had the option. He could stop running, the pain would disappear. But for anyone going through cancer, they didn't have a shut-off switch. They didn't have that ability. They lived with it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So that's always what kept Terry motivated to run another day. Every day, that first week, he ran a quarter of a mile. Then on Monday, to start the next week, he'd run a half mile. He'd add another quarter mile to the distance. And he built up his daily mileage until he was running between 8.5 and 9 miles a day. What people don't realize is, Terry ran over 5,300 kilometers during the Marathon of Hope. He ran over 5,000 kilometers preparing for it as well.
Wow.
And this was, you know, all the training, because he knew he had to run a lot to be able to complete the distance of running across the country. And it was actually a race in northern BC. It was called the Prince George to Boston Marathon. And the reason why it had that title was the winner of that race won a trip to run in the Boston Marathon. And Terry was running that weekend. Doug also was entered, and so was I. Well, on the drive up to Prince George, we said to Terry, you know, you're already running 8.5 miles a day. Why are you entered in the 8.5 mile race when you know you can do it? Why don't you try the double loop course, a 17-mile race? Well, guess what? Terry liked the challenge, and he said yes to that challenge. He finished that race. Guess what place he was in? Last. He was in last place by over 10 minutes. But I can still see the smile on Terry's face when he crossed the finish line, because to him, it wasn't important where he finished. What was important was that he had finished, and he tried his very best. And it was on finishing that race that he was now prepared to tell his family, why he had been training the many, many months. He'd lied to us all. He told us he was training to run in the Vancouver Marathon. And the reason why he lied was he felt that he had to be convinced that he could do it before he would share it with his family. Doug knew about it, but we didn't know. And this race in Prince George was the confirmation when he ran 17 miles that he felt that he could do it. Was I surprised when Terry told me he was going to run across the country on an artificial leg? Not at all. My mom told a different story. She was very angry and very upset, but to me, he was my older brother, and I had incredible admiration for him, and I knew the kind of person he was up to that point. Whenever he said he was going to do something, Terry Fox did it, and he did it to the best of his ability. So I knew right away he could do it.
Oh, that's quite an inspiring story. Like we've grown up in our high schools, and we hear about, you know, the story, but to get it from you, Darrell, is an absolute blessing, and we really appreciate you coming on the show with us today to be able to just share the love and the inspiration of your brother, and it's just incredible. You did mention that our students here are about 17 years old, which is when Terry found out about his diagnosis. What advice would yourself or your brother provide to our students regarding being faced with a hardship or an obstacle and not giving up? So what kind of advice would you guys provide our fellow students here?
Well, I'm coming from a unique perspective, having, have this incredible story as inspiration every day of my life. But I believe, and Terry has shown us, that anything is possible if you try. He even said before he started the Marathon of Hope, he said, I want to try the impossible to show that it can't be done. And what I like to always share when I'm speaking to those that are of Terry's age was how average he was. I think maybe I missed sharing that earlier, but Terry was a very average individual, a very average student, a very average athlete, but he always excelled because of hard work and determination. And he would even say in a strange way that he was almost glad that he was diagnosed with cancer, because before he was diagnosed, he was a very self-centered individual. Anything he accomplished was solely to satisfy his own personal ambitions, but cancer opened the door and the window to other things, and the idea and the concept of giving back, and that he needed to add that to his life, and that's what he did. So I'm a believer that anything, again, I'll say it again, it's possible if you try, through hard work and determination. And Terry also was fortunate to, I think, have a pretty good support system in place too, in terms of, strong family and stronger friends and incredible peers and mentors throughout his life. So having that is advantageous, but the drive within, it came from Terry himself. But he just needed to find that focus and that goal. But I'm a believer that anything is possible. I'm approaching, next year I'll be 60. I'm still very active. At one point in my life, I ran 13 and a half years without taking a day off. I ran at least 5K every day. And of course, Terry's there every day. If he can run 42K on artificial leg, don't tell me I can't find 5K to go for a run. So whenever you're facing challenges or adversity, I know it's hard, I know it's not easy, but look within and dig deep, and I think you have it within you to do anything if you set your mind to it.
Amazing. Yeah. Like I said, great family, one of the great Canadian families. And Darrell, as much as you don't want to take credit, the fact that you've been able to carry this legacy on for 40 years and speak to people at Champlain College, like all the way across the country. And I reached out to him on Facebook, and right away he said yes and didn't ask any questions. And I just think I can't think of anyone Terry would rather tell his story than you. I've heard your interviews, and you're an incredible speaker. But the show is called Serious and Silly, so we want to just dive a little bit into the silly part.
Yes!
I wonder if you have any funny stories or interesting stories about you and Terry that you want to share.
Well, I think one of the reasons why I became the third member of the Marathon of Hope was because I had a sense of humor back in 1980. I've lost it since, but I had one back then. Because when they looked at my resume and they looked at what I had to offer, I had nothing. I just graduated from high school. I saw it as an opportunity. That's what, I graduated early. I missed a month of high school to be a third member of the Marathon of Hope. It was like a get out of jail card. I was very excited. So that when I looked at and realized I had nothing to offer, that was the one thing that I thought that I could add to the Marathon of Hope, and that was to entertain. And here I am getting serious again and emotional, but they were long, stressful days. Scott, you mentioned we were on the road at 5 o'clock every morning. We were up at 4:30. I did not like that at all. That didn't certainly pick, wasn't something that I was looking forward to. So then as momentum built for the Marathon of Hope, along with running 42 kilometers every day, Terry might have to make 3 or 4 public appearances as well to share the story. So I was exhausted at the end of the day, and I wasn't running 42K. I can only fathom what he was going through, but I knew you had to pick your moments, because Terry had his game face on. It was like, opening night to Montreal Canadiens versus the Boston Bruins every day for him. And he had to prepare mentally for it. But I always knew when it was right to maybe have some fun. Here's something that might interest you. I didn't even have a driver's license. I'm prepared to share it now. But in 1980, I was driving the van in Ontario, and the Ontario Provincial Police were aware that I didn't have my driver's license. I failed it twice. I'm prepared to share that now. During the Marathon of Hope, I finally got it in Sudbury. So that was great. But the OPP didn't think I could do very much damage. I was only driving at, like 5 miles an hour. I should be okay. But one thing I want to say about Terry, and I said it earlier, Scott, in terms of Terry not being perfect. He wasn't perfect. He had his flaws. And he did. I mean, his stubbornness led to a bit of a temper at times. And I used to call him madman when we were growing up. And one thing that I had at that time was the ability to run faster than Terry. So I have memories of him chasing me around the dining room table in the living room, and he never caught me, thank goodness.
Yeah, as the middle brother of 3, yeah, definitely older brothers love when you're faster than them. That makes them super, super happy. Your mom must have been even more excited, not that Terry was running, but now that the younger brother is actually going with him. So she must have been super happy with that as well.
She was happy, but she was also concerned, because it was like she had lost 2 of her, her children to the road. And, for me, it was an incredible adventure. It was the first time for me on a plane flying to St. John, New Brunswick. That's where I met up with Terry. And I'd never been past Winnipeg prior to the Marathon of Hope. So an incredible adventure and I've seen Canada the way no one has seen Canada before. And we're so lucky to live in this incredible country.
So if I can brag just for 2 minutes, Darrell, Sheila and I are known at Champlain College. People surround us on campus. They're always, hey, are you guys the serious and silly guys? But then we started reading about Terry's honors. So I'm just going to quickly run down Terry's honors to kind of ground me and Sheila a little bit. And I'm not sure if you know, but there's approximately 32 roads and streets named after Terry, 14 schools, 14 buildings, the Terry Fox Research Institute, Terry Fox Monument, 9 fitness trails, a mountain in the Canadian Rockies, the Fountain of Hope in Rideau Hall is named after Terry, and the Coast Guard icebreaker is named the icebreaker CCGS Terry Fox. So that kind of grounded me and Sheila a little bit when we saw about his honors. But like I said to our students, go Google Terry Fox. This story, we cannot do it justice in the 10-15 minutes that we have here together.
Incredible. And Darrell, if students do want to follow or get involved with the Terry Fox Foundation, like how would they, or the movement, how would they do that exactly?
Yeah, terryfox.org, it would be the place to go. There's considerable information there on Terry, and also on the run, which is coming up shortly. So it's a great source, and it's quite interactive too. I think you'll have fun there.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much again, Darrell, for joining us today. Your words have been very inspirational, not only to Scott and myself, but I'm sure it's going to be very inspirational to our students. We have a group of students that are going to be doing a Relay for Life event in April, which is basically a 24-hour walk to kind of describe that cancer never sleeps. So we're going to keep doing it. So just your words today are going to be very inspirational to those students as well. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. Had fun.
Thank you, Darrell.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. Take care.
Bye-bye.